Donald Trump destroys liberal activist after shocking investigation, reveals billions in fraud and waste. Millions were watching, and the liberal activist thought she had prepared the perfect ambush for him, but in just minutes, the trap backfired spectacularly. "Mr. Trump," Isabella began, her voice smooth as silk, "you have been at the center of recent controversy regarding the mismanagement of billions in government funds. Do you deny the findings of the recent investigation?" "I embrace them because they expose the very corruption that has plagued this administration." His voice was steady, deliberate. "But you and I both know who has truly benefited from these schemes, and it's not the people." "Are you suggesting that these findings were misrepresented?" she pressed. "I'm suggesting that your network conveniently ignores the deeper truth. Billions disappeared under liberal governance, yet you sit here trying to pin it on conservatives." Trump chuckled, shaking his head. "You should be asking the real culprits why public funds ended up in the pockets of the elite under the guise of social programs." "Isabella, do you know who really profited from this scandal? Because I have the receipts." "Where did you obtain these documents?" They were witnessing something unravel. She took a deep breath. "Let's talk about your policies. Many claim they disproportionately serve corporate interests. Isn't that just another form of corruption? Create dependency and then call it progress." His voice sharpened. "I built skyscrapers, you built crises. How can you claim to be different?" She had anticipated resistance, but not like this. Trump had come prepared, and worse. He was turning the interview into an inquisition against her own ideology. She forced another smile, leaning forward slightly. "You say your policies build, Mr. Trump, but what about the communities left behind? What about the people who have lost faith in the system because of politicians like yourself?" Isabella felt a bead of sweat at her temple. "So you deny that corporate tax cuts disproportionately benefit the wealthy? Do you deny that the so-called social programs you defend are riddled with fraud? And that the real beneficiaries are political elites hiding behind progressive rhetoric? And the fact is, your entire premise is built on deceit. You don't want reform, you want control. The same bureaucratic machine that benefits from keeping people reliant on government? Come on, Isabella. The American people aren't that naive. By putting power back into the hands of the people, by reminding America that the government serves them, not the other way around. Trump, if you believe the government has failed, do you have proof of direct misconduct beyond general claims? Tell me, Isabella, where was the media outrage when this was exposed? Are you implying direct corruption among sitting officials? Now tell me again who benefits from the system. And the American people are supposed to believe that this was all just oversight? He let the words hang, the silence stretching. The moderator cleared his throat. "Miss Vance, do you have a response? Because if we dig deeper, we'll find more, won't we? More contracts, more waste, more taxpayers funding the lifestyles of a select few under the guise of progress. That's the real fraud here. Ladies and gentlemen, we will take a short break and return after these messages." Isabella's eyes darted to her producer off stage. A barely perceptible shake of his head confirmed her worst fear. They had underestimated him. The broadcast resumed with tension thick in the air. Isabella straightened her posture, determined to recover lost ground. "Mr. Trump, you've presented documents, but I must ask, why now? Why bring these forward in this setting, instead of through formal legal channels?" Isabella pressed her lips together. "If what you say is true, then where are the criminal charges? It's why they're watching this interview, instead of waiting for justice from institutions that never deliver. Because these weren't mistakes. They were part of a system designed to keep power in the same hands. Pretending that taxpayer dollars vanish into thin air, that's the real crime here. Trump, some argue that you benefit from these narratives, selling fear, stoking division. Aren't you just another politician using controversy for personal gain? Besides bureaucratic red tape and broken promises?" And Donald Trump had just turned the entire narrative on its head. Isabella took a deep breath. The pressure in the room was unbearable. Every eye was on her, waiting for a response that wouldn't come. The documents Trump had provided weren't just allegations, they were damning evidence. The production team whispered frantically in their earpieces, likely debating whether to cut the segment short. She had to regain control. "Mr. Trump, you claim to stand for the people," she said, voice tighter now. "But isn't it true that your past business dealings have also been questioned? Can we trust that you're not simply using this platform to settle political scores? Can you say the same about the politicians you defend? He gestured to the document still lying between them. The difference between us is that I invest in the people. They rob them. She wasn't just losing control of the conversation, she was losing the room. The moderator cleared his throat. Let's move on. Mr. Trump, what do you believe should happen next regarding the corruption allegations you've raised? If you want to restore faith in our government, the first step is holding those in power accountable. That's why the American people need to wake up. Because if they don't demand justice, those who stole from them will keep doing it. Ms. Vance, any final response? Then let's move to closing statements. The segment was over, but the battle for truth had only begun. The moment the cameras cut, chaos erupted behind the scenes. Producers barked orders, journalists scrambled for post-interviews, and studio assistants rushed to manage the flood of media requests. Isabella stormed off the stage, her earpiece still buzzing with frantic chatter from her team. "What the hell happened out there?" she hissed at her producer, Greg, who was already wiping sweat from his forehead. Greg shook his head. "We underestimated him. And the audience. They turned. This isn't over. It's about the truth finally being heard. I'll set it up." The image staring back was not the confident journalist who had walked onto that stage an hour ago. It was someone who had lost control of the very thing she had built her career on. The narrative. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. "Walk away while you can. The truth is coming." Trump adjusted the microphone. "Tonight I sat before the American people and revealed the truth about corruption at the highest levels of government. I did not come here to play politics. I came to expose what the media refuses to acknowledge. And now I present even more proof. And it has cost the American taxpayer billions. But let me ask you, where was the media when these crimes were happening? Where was the outrage when taxpayers were robbed?" Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. Every word he spoke hammered at the foundation of the narrative she had helped construct. Her reputation was crumbling before her eyes. Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. "He has more. Get out before it's too late." And how deep did this corruption truly run? A sense of dread washed over her. She had been so sure of her position, so confident in her side's moral superiority. But now, doubt gnawed at her like a relentless whisper. Back at the press conference, another reporter asked, "Mr. Trump, critics say you're using this moment for personal political gain. How do you respond?" Then slowly a few claps, then more. Within seconds, the entire room erupted into applause. This was no longer just a campaign or a political move. This was a movement. And there was no stopping it now. By morning, the entire country was talking about the revelations. News outlets scrambled to cover the fallout, some reluctantly conceding the validity of Trump's claims, others launching desperate counter-narratives. But the people had seen the truth. Trump's team was inundated with calls from citizens, whistleblowers, and even former officials willing to testify. The tide was turning. Meanwhile, Isabella sat in her office, disheveled and exhausted. She had spent the night reviewing files, trying to find something, anything that could contradict Trump's claims. But there was nothing. She finally understood the weight of the message she had received. "He has more. Get out before it's too late." There's a major retraction coming from within the administration. They're admitting parts of what Trump exposed. We need to get ahead of this. His words had ignited something greater than politics. This was about restoring faith in democracy, about demanding accountability. That evening, as Trump stood before a crowd of thousands, he spoke not as a candidate, but as a citizen who had seen the truth and refused to turn away. This fight is far from over. But tonight, we take the first step toward reclaiming our government, our freedom, and our future. The truth has won, and it will keep winning.